Number one pregame show forever. Plus a Hall of Famer, and my friend Howie Long joins me on the show today.
Hey, guys.
Let's start with the Odell Beckham thing. It just doesn't work for me. Listen, first of all, I know my personality. I'm not a big...
I just did my face cream.
You did?
You
look fantastic.
Do you have Tom's face cream?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. The only thing I did with Tom, I was fascinated by he referenced the book, The Four Agreements, a number of times. And I said, I've got to get this book and see what this is all about. It's more of a spiritual kind of life.
Yeah, I
daily,
think it's...
daily lessons.
So, Howie, you're very interesting to me because you were a tough guy, and yet you're probably one of the most cerebral people I know in football, as are your sons. So I have always been a kind of believer in
when they're not beating each other up.
Right, but you've really shifted gears. Your wife, your kids, you are, I would say, very progressive, and you're just a very thoughtful guy. I mean, you and I talk about life as much as we do football.
Yeah.
And that's why you and Bradshaw getting along is the strangest thing in the world, because he's crazy and you are not crazy.
It's a yin and a yang.
It is, totally. So I was saying this yesterday. You can build your football team any way you want. The Steelers and Seahawks and Ravens, to me, are emotional cultures. They're talkative. They're better at home. I mean, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Seattle are different teams at home than away. Those teams yesterday, all three came out flat. Is it possible that they dealt with that polarizing moment differently than other more stoic teams?
I've heard your comments on it, and I don't necessarily agree with you. It's plausible that that's the case, and I don't envy the players in the league today. You know, when I played, you had the three networks, no cell phones, no internet. Right. You know, before the vice president invented the internet, and it was easier to focus and lock in. You know, routines are important, and football players like them. And when those routines are disrupted, if this had happened on a Monday or a Tuesday versus a Friday, that really threw a lot of, I think a lot of football players were forced to address, how do we deal with this, not only individually, but as a team, head coaches, owners, how do we all deal with this, overhand right? And I think teams were distracted. I don't agree necessarily. Jacksonville's 3-0 in London. It's the first time Baltimore's been there. I think you can write that off. Pittsburgh, in looking at Pittsburgh leading up to the game yesterday, they're out of sync offensively. They have some injuries in their defensive front. They're not as dynamic in bringing pressure. That puts a lot of pressure on their secondary. And the other example you gave, it was Pittsburgh. Here's where Seattle is. Seattle, one is, they're a little long in the tooth on defense.
They are.
They're like a fighter who's had 102 fights, both as an amateur and a professional. That defense has been carrying the load
for about 6 years.
For a long time.
They're Manny Pacquiao. They've lost their punch.
They have been dominant. And we saw it in Green Bay. They hung with Green Bay in Green Bay for the first half. Too many snaps on the field. The body blows start to add up, and in the second half, you get a little tired. You start to reach a little bit. You're not in the right gap. How many times do you see a running back versus Seattle untouched on the edge for 20 yards?
Multiple times.
Right.
Multiple.
And I thought the Hyde runs versus San Francisco were kind of an anomaly, but we're once is a coincidence, twice is, okay, three times it's kind of who you are.
Let me ask, Howie, when you played, you were a Villanova kid. Again, you're a very bright guy, so are your kids. Were you a team leader in the locker room? Were you talkative? Were you that guy in the NFL?
No, I don't think I was. I was a leader. I tried to be a leader by example.
Okay. Because I wonder...
My viewpoint was that, in my preparation in the meeting room, in my preparation on the football field, in my mind, there's only a couple of things you can control. You show up on time and you outwork everybody.
Because I wonder, had you dealt with this polarizing situation?
Oh boy, would
you have become one?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't be comfortable, and I don't envy. Chris has been our son Chris has been, very vocal in,
Sure.
in his support of his teammates, and as he should be. I think, I would not choose to sit or kneel for the national anthem, but I certainly support the rights of those who do, and it's about perspective. I always tell my boys, try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to understand what they're thinking and what they're going through. And it's impossible for me, as a dad, and I mentioned this yesterday, as a dad, a white father raising 3 boys in America. I mean, there were a million things that I'd lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling worrying about.
Sure.
Now it's like the scene in in the Grisham book, A Time to Kill, which was made into a movie with Matthew McConaughey, where he's addressing the jury in his final statement. And he said, I want you to close your eyes. Now I want you to imagine the girl is white. It's hard for me to close my eyes and imagine that I'm black and have the frame of reference of a father who's black in America raising 3 sons. On top of all the other things that I have to worry about, I have to worry about that. That's hard to do. And I think white players in the NFL, in a league that's comprised of
71%.
70+% African-American players, they have a unique perspective that not a lot of white Americans have.
Sure.
They're the minority in the room. They also have the opportunity through, life experience being relayed to them. This is what I've dealt with. This is what my family's dealt with. It's a unique perspective. And I think, people talk about Barack Obama being a uniter. Donald Trump has turned into the great uniter for the NFL. You talk about owners, you talk about the Players Association, you talk about coaches, you talk about players. Our league came together in a way that I think, the NFL could be really proud of.
As I said to start the show, you can feel how you feel. You can boycott what you want to boycott, but I've never loved football more than yesterday. I was proud of the coaches and the players and most of the owners, how they reacted. You can feel how you want. I feel how I want. I'm going to never tell you how to think. I'm just telling you how I think. Howie Long joins us. Then there's the OBJ reaction. So let's show it. He did the I'm a dog and peed. Just didn't sit well with me. I thought it was immature. When you look at his resume, he's done stuff like this before. How did it play for you?
He is a generational talent.
Yep.
He is as dynamic a player as we have in the game. He is who he is.
Yeah.
And I it's an interesting dynamic because the New York Giants to me are, you want to talk about flagship organizations. And
they're a blue blood.
They're class from top to bottom. I'm just not sure who in that locker room or on that coaching staff has the ability to pull this guy aside and say, hey, enough's enough. I just don't think they have that ability. And I think he is going to be who he is. And I'm sure, if you run into Odell, or if I were to run into Odell and have a conversation with him, I'm sure he's a nice enough guy. But for whatever reason, when the lights go on, you're on the edge of your seat for a reason, because something's good, bad, spectacular. It's going to happen.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from the newest show on FS1, First Things First, with Chris Carter and Nick Wright.